Welcome to the State of the Collection 2025. This is an unhealthy number of watches, just to start off, make that very clear. I know I have far too many. I have far too many so that I can use them for reviews like this, or to compare them to different watches as I go through the reviews. I wouldn't have this many watches if it wasn't for this channel, and I wouldn't have this channel if it wasn't for you guys watching this video. So thank you very much. Quick note, if you could hit that subscribe button down below, it's greatly appreciated to me. It has helped increase the growth of this channel. It's allowed me to do cool things like buy this 100mm macro lens so that I can get these really neat shots that hopefully you guys all enjoy. And obviously it helps me do this. This will never be my day job. It is something I do for fun, but hopefully you guys enjoy this as I go through what I have within this collection. As I go through these watches, I'm gonna put in the description down below a link to every review that I have for the watches I'm covering in order of how I present them. So if you're interested in one of these watches and you wanna learn more about it or my thoughts about it. So for the first box here, this one is a G-Shock. It's like an octagonal G-Shock. This is the one that everyone went crazy about a while back, the CasiOaks that people were in love with. I bought it because I was interested in reviewing it and covering the CasiOaks model line. There's actually two that I have that are very similar. I think these are great everyday watches. If you're interested in the G-Shock line, one of these two is definitely going to be something that you're probably going to look at, and I would highly recommend. I like this one probably more than this, even though this has the metal accents, just because it's more classic G-Shock, and I tend to veer towards the classics, as you'll continue to find out if you haven't already known that from watching this channel. There are two other G-Shocks here that I have worn a lot. You can see all the scratches and scuffs and kind of crap on these straps. You can even see some tears in this strap down here. If you don't know, my family and I, we own a manufacturing business that originally started as a contracting business. So I was out in the field building outdoor products, roof structures, that sort of thing. And so I used to wear these all the time out on the job site because you needed to have something you could tell the time, but could get beat to crap. And so that's what I predominantly wore these for. And so you can notice that there are a lot of scars on them. Absolutely love G-Shocks. These are great. These are, you know, the kind of watch that people realistically need. Everything past these is kind of just a luxury. These are luxury watches. Some of these are expensive watches, but not necessarily luxury, depending on your like definition of luxury. But I would say anything past a G-Shock is a luxury for you to own. You don't need to own any of these other ones. So G-Shocks, get your bases covered. If you don't already own a G-Shock, I'd highly recommend you buy one. If you are going to buy one, the classic thicker one here is great, but I think this is the one most people will pick, or the CasiOaks that I mentioned earlier. Absolutely love this G-Shock. It is just a classic look, and the one that I think many people are probably going to gravitate towards when they consider buying a G-Shock. Just this 80s aesthetic, absolutely beautiful watch. Love the G-Shock. Highly, highly, highly recommend this to anyone out there looking at one. The next watch here is the Seiko Turtle. Fantastic watch. I've shown this in every collection review that I've covered since I started the channel. I'm pretty sure I've had this for a really long time. Bezel action's gotten a little stiff over the years. That's just because I haven't worn it enough, I think, and so you can't work out all this. But the Seiko Turtle is just like a fantastic, thick chunk of a watch. If you want something that's a little beefier, like this thing is just the bee's knees. I really enjoy everything about this Seiko Turtle. The only thing that I would note is, you know, it is going to be a little bit heavier. Thankfully, it's pretty thin, so it wears down in your wrist. And this little keeper there does not like staying in place. It likes sliding around. And so this flap will come out all the time. So the keeper's a little annoying, but you can see I've scratched that too. I used to wear this out on the job site every so often when I was, you know, feeling like I wanted to wear something automatic. And the Turtle was definitely something that I would consider. Got to look at the Moonswatch. I have this. I wear it very, very, very rarely, but it was definitely a point in time when the Moonswatch first came out, and my first video on YouTube was covering the Moonswatch, talking about the Moonswatch. And so this will never leave my collection for mainly, you know, memory purposes of the fact that it was around at that point in time and it was really popular. One thing I do want to note, I do have it on this strap here. I've mentioned them before. This is the Moon DNA. It's like a laser etched custom leather strap by a company called REM. I'll put them in the description down below with the Moonswatch as well. Really like that strap, but they do some really cool stuff, and I think it's nice to highlight them. This is my Luminox. This is a Navy SEAL model. I've covered this a million times. My first watch that I had that was a Swiss watch my dad gave me, it was this model, but I accidentally dropped it out of my backpack and then someone, maybe me, ran it over with their car. I didn't know about it until I got home and realized I didn't have the watch. I bought this again when I got really into watches again, and you can see I've actually let the battery run out, so I need to swap that out. Great watch. It just, again, for me, this is really just a memory. I don't wear this very often. I used to only wear it when I was moving houses for whatever reason, just to give me an excuse to wear it instead of a G-Shock, because it's kind of the same style of watch and something that I would wear when I'm doing something a little bit more labor intensive. And so I wear it, you know, when I move. This is a Vaer watch. I like Vaer. I covered them recently. This is the A1 Automatic. I like this watch because, one, it's made by an American company based out of St. Louis, and two, this is their automatic version. They do have an AmeriQuartz where the quartz movement is made in America. I like their design. I think their marketing has been top notch. I definitely see them on the internet a lot. So if you're interested in something like this, I'm sure you've already had some of their marketing presented to you. I just like the watch. I think it's nice. It's definitely classic. I appreciate them because honestly, they've been a fantastic company to work with. So this is a Timex Waterbury chronograph. I think Timex is doing some fantastic things recently. I did just cover that they released a watch for $1,000 and I didn't think it was worth the $1,000. This is, I think, still their sweet spot. This is $250, I think. This is a quartz movement in here, but the look that you get out of this watch for $250 is why I think Timex still has a lot of really good value out there in the market. Just a really simple, clean, beautiful aesthetic. Definitely, you know, really, really nice watch for $250. You know, as they push up market and they look at more $1,000 watch, I think it's going to get more difficult for them to compete. But in this area, Timex recently, I think, has been doing a great job. Fantastic design for a good price. This last watch here within this watch case is a Zelos. This is their Comet. This has a P51 Mustang dial in it. I did a review recently of this. So it's a fragment of a P-51 Mustang, which is a renowned aircraft used during World War II, if you don't know anything about a P-51 Mustang. And I just think it's neat that they have in here a piece of history used as the dial architecture that then they build on top of. Really highly legible, beautiful design, really thin, which is what I really love about some of Zelos' models these days. Plus it has, I think, a really beautiful bracelet and quick adjust that is very much like, you know, an IWC Mark XX that I'll cover a little bit later. Fantastic watch, great reworked vintage movement inside, really, really nice piece. Zelos obviously has done a lot of weird things over the years, a lot of meteorite, a lot of other unique metals. And I think that every so often they have something that really shines. And for me, this is one that really does, which is why I was happy to be able to review it. So that is the first box. Tried to cover that relatively quickly. I do have a few things in the bottom here that I could cover some other day. I also have over there all my straps. I've done a different strap video I can link up above, talking about my strap guide. I can do a new version of that if you guys want to hear about my thoughts on more straps that I've encountered. But you know, I have too many boxes. This channel has been great, but it means that I have too much stuff sometimes. As a quick note, people ask me all the time what my watch boxes are. I have multiple. That one right there I bought off Amazon, which I'll link now. Again, in the description, everything's gonna go in order as I'm mentioning it right now. This one here I actually bought when Hodinkee stopped selling things. They sold this. It's nice, smooth. It's fine. I think most of the products that were sold on Hodinkee were a little overpriced. And this one was sold at clearance. And I think it then became a good value. I think I bought it for like 40 bucks. This one right here is from Daily Watch. They did send this to me a while back. This is their octagonal case, which has this lay flat section here, which I really like to like present watches when I'm talking to people, I guess. That's the concept anyway. I think it's really nice just mainly because it stores everything pretty compact for 6 watches. And obviously it doesn't take up a huge amount of room. You don't have a, like this one here, like the top has to go somewhere. The fact that it can lay down, I think just gives you better access. It's a really neat concept too. So I really like that. But the watches that are part of this octagonal shape, this is probably the watches that I consider wearing every so often, but I wouldn't say they are ones that I really gravitate towards and reach for all the time. Again, that's gonna be the last 7 watches that I cover. Obviously, I'm not wearing one right now, so we'll cover that when we get there. So the first one here is gonna be, let's start with this. This is the San Martin. This is their Pelagos ripoff, basically. to put a long story short, I did a review of this, I think at the beginning of the year. I bought it for $260 from AliExpress. Again, link down below. Some of those are also affiliate links. I think the AliExpress one is. No one gave me this watch. I bought it with my own money, and I have really enjoyed wearing it because what I like about a titanium diver is the fact that it's light, but looks like it's built to handle stuff. Do you know what I mean? So when you talk about a tool watch for $5,000 is a little bit of a hard pill for me to swallow to call it a tool watch. Whereas this for $260, but having that light titanium aesthetic feels like an actual tool watch. So when I built this behind me, this is a Murphy bed with shelves, or downstairs I built built-in cabinets and bookshelves. I wore this throughout that entire project because timing things on a dive bezel is just so nice and satisfying. And when you're out and doing woodworking stuff or you're building anything, it's easy to lose track of time. So I time myself every so often, and this obviously gave me that function. Plus it was super light. I forgot that I was wearing it most of the time. So really enjoy the San Martin here. For $260, it's a fantastic deal. It is a ripoff of the Tudor model. It does have QC issues. The medallion here fell out within the first 2 weeks of me owning it. It is a micro adjust back here in the back, which is nice to have, again, on this price watch. So the concept here was to scratch the itch for less money. For me, it's done that for the most part, but it may not for you. And many people have a really strong opinion about homage watches, and that's fine. But my opinion is that sometimes you can't afford everything in life. And certainly most people cannot afford this array of watches. And because it's unrealistic and silly to spend this much money on watches. But I think this is a more realistic representation of what most people could afford and enjoy wearing. And so while I understand that it's a ripoff in many ways with a different logo on it, I appreciate it because it has a different logo on it. If it actually had the Tudor logo on it, I'd feel differently about this watch. Next watch here is a Citizen watch. I really love this watch. I covered this a while back. It's actually, I think, my most viewed video on the entire channel because I geeked out about the manufacturing element of this, about how they crafted the titanium, how they were able to get this here, which is a Zaratsu polish. Zaratsu polish is just, any flat finish polishing that's done on a particular type of lapping machine. And Citizen can do that. It's not unique to Grand Seiko, especially given the fact that the machine was actually a German machine, a Salaz lapping machine. Either way, I geeked out about the manufacturing. I really love this because this is also titanium watch, much like the San Martin that we talked about, except this is made by an actual reputable brand and not just a Chinese homage offshoot. And so I really loved the fact that Citizen was offering something that seemed like such a great quality at an affordable price, not to mention the fact that I think, wearability and style of a watch like this is just off the charts. Way better than the price point that it's offered at, in my opinion. Absolutely love this watch. I think that this is just Citizen at their absolute best. They are powerhouse of great value watches, and this, I think, epitomizes that in many ways. But they're still coming out with more watches that I really enjoy, but I really like this one. Next watch here is going to be a Seiko. And this watch, I think I recovered it again recently. There's a video that I talked about, the 5 watches that YouTube convinced me to buy, or maybe it was the 7 watches YouTube convinced me to buy. The SKX007 and 009 watches. They were gateways, I think, for many of us. This is their SSK variant. I like this watch because it's like a polar look. The bezel is a friction bezel, which really threw me off and has been part of the reason why I haven't worn it, because I keep knocking it and it just kind of annoys me a little bit. But what I love about this watch is that it embodies everything I loved about the SKX007 that's now been discontinued. 4 o'clock crown, same dimensions, a little bit tubby, squat, short lug to lug watch from Seiko with an updated bracelet, because this bracelet is way better than the original SKX bracelet. Plus, I really like the dial color and the color of the GMT hand. I just think it's a beautiful package for the price point it typically sells at a discount. I think it usually sells around $300-400. Seiko, this is, I think, Seiko's bread and butter, is great, beefy watches at a good price point. I covered the Turtle earlier. This is another fantastic Seiko, one of my favorite from them. The next watch here is a Baltic. This is the Aquascaphe. This is their V2. If I haven't already released a review, which I think I have at this point of this watch, it just came out recently. The original Aquascaphe was a watch that I wanted so badly when I first got into buying watches like this, what, 7 years ago now? And I never really bought it. And now that I had this one, it was just a full circle moment for me that Baltic was willing to send me this watch. And so I'll never get rid of it for that reason. I think everyone here is probably familiar with the Baltic look. They have this, vintage aesthetic, but for a reasonable price. This is the best example of that. I think this sells for $600 if I want to remember correctly, or maybe $700. And I think for what you get, it's definitely a great aesthetic point. And I think that's what Baltic has always done really well is they know what people are actually buying is not the movement or the tech specs. What they're buying is the aesthetic and the feeling. And the Aquascaphe was obviously something they nailed on the first release. And I think they've refined a little bit here on this second release. And I just love it because it makes me think of when I first got into watches. Another Baltic watch, this is their Scalegraph. This was a limited edition celebrating a French racing collaboration between Baltic and this French race itself. I think this is just a really nice summer watch. So I like it for that reason. It's not super legible. It isn't the easiest thing to read because these indices here, if you look at it, like the indices kind of blend in a little bit because there's no paint on them and they're relatively small in comparison to the rest of the dial. And the hands kind of also blend in a little bit. And so for me, I actually can't read this all the time. But what this is aesthetic in a dial. From a distance or even just sitting on my wrist, what I love are the color combinations and the accents of the metal. I read it obviously when I have to read the time. I have to, put it closer to my face and then I can read the time still, like it does its function. But this is aesthetics over everything else. And over the summer, this is definitely a watch I reach for that reason. Of the watches I've ever received compliments for, this is only one up until now that someone's actually gone out of their way to compliment my watch. Both my sister-in-law and my wife paused to compliment this watch because it's all about the look from a distance. Again, not that you should buy things fishing for compliments. You should buy things because you like them. I like the way this looks. It just happens to be something other people notice, I guess, a little bit as well because it's got that muted blue that's really in right now. And it's just colorful. So this watch here is the next one. This is a Depancel. I'll never pronounce that correctly. It's another French brand, much like Baltic. I didn't know anything about them until like 8 months ago. And they reached out to me to try and do a review of this watch. I think this watch has fantastic details for the price point. If we, not to compare brands directly, but if you look at Baltic here, this watch is more expensive than this watch. And the fine details on the case finishing here is just very different, right? I think this polished chamfer that runs the whole rim all the way back across the case is just a nice little touch. And for a watch here that's $700-800 isn't something you always see in that space. I also think that the little customized rotor in the back here is beautiful. It's a unidirectional rotor, so you won't love that if you don't like the sound of something whining. But I like that they did this custom little crown here. I think that looks really nice. The aesthetics of everything are fantastic. They've got a little color accent here for the French flag. The blue that they chose for this dial is beautiful. The little accent up there for the 12, I think is restrained and really attractive while also referencing 12 over all the other indices. I just think not every micro brand gets it right, and this is an example of getting it right. Props to them on getting this watch, making this watch and just making a really, really good product. Not to mention the leather strap here doesn't feel like it was an afterthought. It's actually really supple. Usually those leather straps from micro brands are an afterthought, and they're okay. They're not the best. So that is the daily watch box. Now, before we get to the last 7, quick note. This box is by Waterbury. I get questions about where this box came from all the time. I bought multiples of their watch box. So this one here, travel size, 6 of them. I bought this. They didn't send that to me. This one, 3, and it's got this little insert that you could set down and put things on. That right there. This one is a 2 watch where you can actually have little straps on the inside. Really enjoy that one. This one I think is when they actually sent me one because I told them I really like their cases. Can you send me one? This one here is the same style that my wife has. All her watches are in a Tilbury box as well. They're an Australian company. Really enjoy woodworking, as I mentioned earlier. And so I like the fact that this is in a wood box. I think my father, if he's watching this, would be proud of the fact that I have my watches, or my favorite watches, stored in a wood box. I do not know what species of wood it is, unfortunately. Also, quick honorable mention, if you're into wristwatches, you really should consider pocket watches. There's two reasons for that. One of them is they're neat. The biggest reason is the price point. So this watch right here is a Heuer. This is a Rattrapant. So what that means is you start it, you can stop one of the chronograph hands, and then have it rejoin the main hand. And then when you want to say you're looking at a split time now, we want to look, okay, he crossed the finish line. Now we can read the split time and then have it rejoin for the next split. So it's like laps on your phone. This in a wristwatch form would be very expensive. Probably vintage if it's going to be cheaper, and then it's going to be a pain to get it serviced. So I love pocket watches because I think I bought this for $200, $250 maybe, and you just can't get that in a wristwatch. So when you have that itch of like a technical marvel in wristwatch form, you should consider looking at it in pocket watch form. I don't feel the need to own a Rattrapant anymore because I have this. And so sometimes when I'm sitting at my desk and I want to time something, I just use that. The other reason is stuff like this. This is a Hamilton. This is a railroad grade Hamilton watch. And while the front isn't, it's a little unassuming, it's not the most beautiful thing in the world. It's a nice watch itself, but what I love is the movement. Absolutely gorgeous finishing. And you know this wasn't done by a mechanized CNC machine. Look at that. I mean, that is just something else. I'll get you some macro shots so that you can see this up close too. Just gorgeous. And, this is, I think, a good example. If you're going to buy a watch that's like 15, 20,000 and up, you're buying it for its finishing. And that's the rationale. Well, it's expensive because of the finishing, right? But this watch right here has the same types of finishing. I wouldn't say it's perfect, but they have right there, you see that point right there on the bridge. That is a particularly difficult thing to finish. It doesn't have any internal point finishings here on the anglage work, but it has like all this other, it's polished the gears. You can see the gears on the mainspring are polished at a little bit of a chamfer. The details on this thing are gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. And this would have been a small fortune back in the day for a railroad grade Hamilton pocket watch. So if you're interested in watches in general, highly recommend go out there, take a look at pocket watches. Please don't destroy the eBay market if you're watching this video and you all flood there at once. I don't think I'm big enough to really make that much of an impact, but highly recommend pocket watches. Wanted to say that if you're into watches, end of my rant. Absolutely love my pocket watches though. I keep those right here on my desk. The big one. Okay, so this is my main watch box. In here, I have all of my favorites. The first one here I want to cover is this one. Okay, so this is the Rolex Explorer II. I love my Explorers. You'll find out here soon. Love the Rolex Explorer II. Again, I'm doing these mini reviews because I didn't want to take an hour and a half doing this watch collection review. So you'll see my thoughts on a later video coming up. I've had this now for about 3.5 years, so I've had it for a while. Now this watch is definitely one that I wore a lot when I first bought it. A lot of big milestones early on in my marriage. We bought this when I was on honeymoon in Switzerland, so it was a really cool experience. I spent way too much money, more than I should have on this watch, which also makes it stand out in my mind because it was a really painful experience while also being fun. Really great watch, beautiful dial, subdued, nothing too crazy. It does have actually an engraving on the back here. So if it ever gets stolen, I just have to look for that engraving to hunt down whoever stole my watch. But the engraving never bothered me. It showed me who had it before me. And this is actually, I believe someone earned this from being a ski instructor in Switzerland. At least that's what I was told, and that matches what's written on here. They were a ski instructor for 33 years. And I think that gives me a little glimpse into the person that bought this as a reward at such an incredible point in their life. You know, you put a lifetime into something, and to get out something like this must have meant so much. And I think this watch has had a little extra meaning to me because of the meaning that it probably had for that person. And then obviously I have put my own meaning into it as well. But the Explorer II is just like, if you're interested in buying a Rolex, or you're not interested in buying a Rolex because it says Rolex, this is the best non-Rolex Rolex, if that makes sense. It says Rolex on the watch. It has the Rolex movement in there, all the reliability, all that great stuff, but it doesn't look to the normal person like a Rolex watch. And I think that helps it stand out a little bit. Right now I have it on the same strap I actually have the next watch on. This is my Grand Seiko. This is an Artem strap. I've mentioned them millions of times. They were really nice to me early on in the channel and sent me stuff. I've also bought things. My dad has bought things from them. I have an affiliate link down below, so we've had an ongoing monetary relationship, but I love their straps, and I wouldn't mention them if I didn't love their straps. They just introduced leather straps, and I've really been enjoying wearing this. Just supple, like all their stuff. Supple with a nice deployant clasp, and that's what they do really well on their Hydroflex, which I also wear very often. This Grand Seiko I just did a review on like a couple weeks ago. I've owned it for 2 years. The thing about Grand Seiko is the look of the watch. Absolutely beautiful watch. Love the look of this watch. I think it's a standout. It's a knockout. Beautiful finishing. Everyone praises Grand Seiko for their finishing. And I see those like joke parody videos of, you know, why did you buy a Grand Seiko, or why'd you buy just a Seiko? You go, oh, it's not just a Seiko, it's a Grand Seiko. And look at the Soratsu polishing. And I love those little joke videos, but they do have nice finishing. And for the price point, you can buy this watch right now used on eBay for like $3 grand. Fantastic watch for $3 grand. It puts all Tudors to shame for $3 grand. I know people love Tudors. I love Tudor as well, but for the same money, this feels like another level. And that's because it's shiny. Simple as that. It's got reflective surfaces on there. There's a reason why diamonds are popular. They're highly reflective. This is highly reflective. It does have nice finishing. I don't care about the dial texture in terms of the art involved in it because it's just stamped, it's just printed, but it looks cool visually. I love the applied indices. That's what I think is fantastic. I'm actually gonna be releasing a video in a couple weeks looking at my whole collection here under a 4x macro lens. So really, really tight, like almost like I guess a 6 times or 4 times magnification. I want to do that video because I think it's going to be interesting and give you an idea of the detailed differences between these different brands. So if you want to see that, obviously hit subscribe down below. But this one is one that I have actually looked at under an actual microscope and been really impressed with the polished edges of this watch. Beautiful watch, fantastic value. And it's just nice. Like, it's just cool looking. Grand Seiko is one of those brands for me now in my journey that I look at all the time and I consider. My next watch will likely at this point be another Grand Seiko. If I had to put any money on it, I probably would put it on that. I am looking at the UFA and a couple other ones. This watch here is my Cartier. This is the Santos De Cartier. I bought this year when I crossed 50,000 subscribers. Thank you everyone for watching this. This has been three and a half years of fun for me making these videos, and I've learned a lot, and they look a lot better than they did in the early days. But this watch here was both an achievement and just a nice to have. I've considered this watch ever since I got into watches. It's one of those ones that kind of buzzes in the back of your mind and you never know if you're actually going to go pull the trigger. And then I ended up actually going out and buying it. Really like this watch. I am scratching the bezel. That is bothering me. Eventually I will get probably the bezel polished, or I'll buy a replacement, or both, just because I like a dress watch like this to look like a nice dress watch. And I do tend to wear my watches a little hard. Really love this watch. Been wearing it all the time. I did a video recently talking more about this watch and my thoughts. So you can obviously find that down below, where I talk about the most important watch to me. And this is one of the ones that I mentioned, although not the most important watch. I'll talk about that here at the end. One of those watches that, like, I look at it and it just brings me a sense of joy. It isn't the most functional. It isn't the watch that I wear 90% of the time, but it's a watch I love to wear when I decide to wear it. Next watch here is the IWC, but the watch here is, it's fantastic. I mean, the bracelet is both thick and robust and also has nice movement to it. So it drapes so perfectly across my wrist. The actual watch head itself is thin and just, I think, matches my aesthetic of the clothes I wear so well. Absolutely beautiful watch. Really love this one. I love the micro adjust in the bottom. I love the fact that I can play that out and I can ratchet it up together. I think the blue is beautiful. My dad actually recently bought this watch as the most recent addition to his collection because he liked it so much when I was wearing it. So it's really nice. I bought this on my 30th birthday because it reminded me of my dad and an IWC he had at that time. Now he and I share the exact same watch, which we work together. So we try and not wear the same thing on the same day, but it happens sometimes and it's always fun. And it's nice that he has the same one as well. So meaningful watch for me just from that standpoint. It's a little bit of a connection with my dad and at a cool point in my life. Other than that, I think if someone's looking at their first luxury watch and they're not that swayed by brand, although most of us are, I certainly was, which I'll get into here in a second, this watch is fantastic. 5-day power reserve, which means it's one of the few ones in my box that's still running when I come over here and open it up, which means I pick it up and wear it a lot because it's the only one running. All right, next one here is my Explorer. I've been wearing it recently, which is why it's actually running. So this was the first luxury watch I ever bought. I got this 6 years ago now in November. I've had it for a long time. It has gone on like a teeter-totter of how I feel about it. I'll cover that on a longer video that I do separate from this. But generally, I'm really happy with my decision to buy this watch. When you buy your first luxury watch, I think it's easy to think that you don't want to buy something that you're eventually going to not like as much. And I certainly have always enjoyed this watch. This is the 36mm variant. This is the older version. This is the 114270, if I remember that correctly, which means it has the folded clasp. None of the updates and adjustments that you have with the new Rolex watches, but it is just beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Love this watch. It's an easy one. I wore it on my wedding. I've mentioned that multiple times. I wore it when we got engaged. For me, it's just become like a piece of my life more than a watch, I guess, within my life. I talk about watches as stores of memories. I'm sure some people don't understand that, but for me, I've always been more of an object-focused person. I like having all my stuff sitting out that reminds me of things. Like this top here reminds me of my dad giving it to me. I just like things sitting out because when I put them in a drawer, I forget that they exist, and the memory feels like it fades with the fact that it's hidden away. Watches, for me, do remind me of moments, and they're also just pretty to look at. They can be both. So, the next watch here is my Submariner. I would say of any of the watches that I own, this is the one that I probably wear the most. And that's because it's just so easy to wear. It's basic, and I think most people stray away from it because it is basic, and I don't blame you. It's not fun to feel like you're doing the same thing everyone else is, or you're just like a follower. But sometimes something is a classic for a reason, right? Ralph Lauren is a classic for a reason. A polo is a classic for a reason. A suit with a nice tie, depending on, what you think, is a classic for a reason, right? Just simple. Everyone knows what to expect. This sub is like that. It's a black dial dive watch with a black bezel. It's been a classic since the late 50s, early 60s. It's been around for a long time. A lot of people have worn it. It tends to be the first thing people look at to buy when they first buy a watch, whether they're into watches or not. And I think for a lot of people that taints the idea of the Submariner because someone that isn't a watch enthusiast would buy it. And for me, I don't care. I like it. I wear it. I think it's a classic for a reason. I think it's amazing. The adjustability in the back, the heft of the bracelet, the little polishing so it never feels too sharp, the flatness of the watch, the weight distribution, the feeling of this crown is like perfectly sized so you can easily reach at it. The legibility, so you could just read it even if it was sitting all the way across on the other side of the room, depending on your vision. The bezel action, I've mentioned multiple times, is just gorgeous. It's perfect to the point where I'm really don't enjoy using other dive watches anymore. It's just the watch I pick up because it's so easy and it fits into everything. Love it. Absolutely love the Submariner. So yes, it's a classic, and yes, it's basic, and yes, I am aware of that, and I do not care. Highly, highly recommend the Submariner. Really, really love wearing that one. Okay, the last watch. The most important watch in my collection is my Speedmaster. Now, I've mentioned that in a different video that I also will have in the whole list of links down there. The Speedmaster here, looks like I need to polish, is from 1969. Because of that, it does have the, plexiglass top that they call Hesalite. It's plastic with a nice branding name on it. I know that it's slightly different, but it's basically a plastic crystal, which means that it scratches easily. I think I knocked it against something, which is why you can see that scuff right there. So it means it needs polishing every so often. This is from 1969. It's a vintage watch. I got this last summer and I really loved it because I wanted a vintage Speedy for a long time, but it never really fit into my collection. I covered this in a video recently if you want to learn more about it down below. But essentially, my son was born, and a lot of the things around my son being born, I was wearing this while I was doing those things, timing the pregnancy tests. I was wearing it when he was born, and the night after, and the night after, and the night after, and you get the idea. It has become really sentimental for me. Really enjoy the look of a Speedmaster. It's always been my wife's favorite in my collection. Highly recommend it for anyone out there that's just considering a Speedmaster in general. Beautiful watch. Definitely one that I would tell you to go out there and take a look at. It's got a certain aesthetic to it. I think that's just classic. Highly recommend. So that has been my collection. It is unhealthy, but I love it. I love having these things. I love wearing them. Every time I put them on, I feel so grateful for the opportunity to wear it, for this channel, for everything. I have a fantastic life, and I love doing these videos, and I love being able to enjoy these little pieces of metal that just make us think, I think, of how lucky we are. And I think that's the idea behind these things. Yes, build memories, but also just enjoy life as we go through it. So what do you guys recommend for my next watch with the Grand Seiko situation? I would be interested to see your comments. And what do your collections look like? Happy to talk about them in the comments down below. Thank you for a wonderful year. I'll see you in the next one. Take care.